In this lesson, we'll take a quick look at the new sculpting workflow in Cinema 4D. All right, so we've got our seat here. Let's go ahead and turn everything else off. So we're just left with the seat, and I'm actually going to turn the hyperNURBs off as well. So we're just left with our low polygon seat. Now you may be familiar with a sculpting type of a workflow from something like ZBrush or Mudbox, where you have different subdivision levels and you can go in and add detail. Well, that functionality exists in Cinema 4D, and so let's take a quick look at that, and we'll use this chair or this seat as an example. Okay, so I'm actually going to jump over to a sculpting layout, and we have our own custom DT sculpting, which the only thing different about it is the size of the layout. Okay, so you can see here that we've got the ability to select our mesh. Okay, you have tabs over here for sculpting layers, but then you also have your objects here, which you can select. So we'll go back to our sculpting layers. And we have this selected. There's a button right here called Subdivide. Okay, we open up the options. You can see we can set the smoothness. We'll leave that at 100%. So what's going to happen is it's going to subdivide that every time we hit this button. Now your levels are going to be located over here. So you can see that I can move up and down the subdivision levels. Can subdivide that again if we want to. And we can now use our sculpting tools. So for instance, we could come in here and let's go ahead and use grab. Okay, and let's say that I want to come in and I want to move some of this detail. So I can come in here and just grab that. You can change our brush size. You can see I can middle mouse to modify that brush size as well, and that'll allow us to kind of add a little bit of irregularity to the seat if we want to. So this is kind of analogous to using the move brush in ZBrush. And so this allows us to just add a little bit of detail here. We can also do just a normal kind of a sculpt. So if we wanted to get kind of some wrinkles coming across here, we could do that. Okay. If we hold down Shift, we can kind of smooth that back out. Okay. And you can see that if I hold down Control, it'll actually do the opposite. Okay, so if I sculpt, I'm pulling up, Control is pushing down, and Shift is smoothing out. Okay, so I can come in and do a little bit of sculpting here to add a little bit of irregularity to what should be this upholstered look, either leather or whatever it's made of, vinyl. Come in here and add a little bit of detail to this. Okay, at any time you can go down your subdivision levels all the way back down to the bottom if you want to. Okay, we can get very fine if we wanted to, get a smaller size and increase the pressure. And we can come in here and start to make some finer wrinkles. Maybe we need to come down to or jump up to a higher level rather to get some of that detail in there. We can go ahead and kind of smooth it back out. It's not looking that great, but I'm just kind of using it as an example here. Okay. Now when you start to sculpt something, it's going to add in the Objects Manager this sculpting tag. You can see I think you've talked a little bit about tags, but a lot of the stuff that you do on your objects is going to be confined within these tags, and so I can select this sculpting tag, and then you can see it has some just real basic things in here for this. Okay, and we can come back in here. You can also put things on layers. Okay, if you wanted to do that, but we won't really get into too much in depth on sculpting. I just wanted to kind of show you. You also have, something like a knife where you can sort of cut in, and define things a little bit better. So if you have seams that you want to define, you can kind of use that knife to do that. Kind of coming across here, you can see that's pretty drastic. Actually, there's a lot of different kinds of details you can add. If you ever want to go back to your original, you can use erase, and that'll take your sculpting back to the original model. Take out the detail that you've sculpted in. Okay, you've got smooth, you've got wax. You can pinch areas together, scrape areas away. So a lot of really cool tools in here. You can also come in here and decrease and increase the level, get a good idea of your poly count. Okay, when you get to the top, you have the ability to go ahead and subdivide again. This gives you an indication of your current level and the polygon count. And you have also options in here for creating layers. And so hopefully we'll have a sculpting course that you can go through to get a much broader look at this. So I just wanted to show you this. I don't want to get too in-depth because this is an introduction to Cinema 4D, but you do have this available, so I'd encourage you to check that out. Even just grabbing some primitives and making those editable, turning those into polygons, just a cube, and begin subdividing it and begin pushing and pulling it and sculpting it and see what happens. Can be a lot of fun. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump back to our DT startup. We can turn everything else back on. You can keep your sculpt if you want to, or you can turn your hypernerbs back on and get rid of the sculpt tag. Either way, let's go ahead and move on in the next lesson to building a control panel. So we'll continue using some of the polygon methods that we looked at to do that in the next lesson.